This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Winnipeg's residential snowplow operation is well underway after last week's snowfall. This despite some obstacles on streets. The city is again asking you to know your zone this winter so crews can do their jobs. But as the CBC's Josh Crabb reports, it appears some drivers either didn't know or chose not to move their vehicles.
Snow-covered cars, partially cleared streets. Crews had to plow around vehicles in violation of the residential parking ban.
There's always a big ridge to have to back over so that you can get out because that part is never cleared.
A snow clearing operation like the one taking place right now is triggered when 10 or more centimeters of snow falls. This is when the city asks you to know your zone and check for parking restrictions. Joe Davis says some drivers aren't getting the message.
The plows, they probably want to do it, but the cars are there so they can't.
The city has stopped doing what it calls courtesy tows because it was costing too much. Under that policy, people's vehicles that were left on the street in violation of a parking ban were moved. But in 2021 alone, that cost the city more than $900,000. You will still get towed if you park on a winter route, but that ban was put on pause to give people more parking options during the residential plow. The number of complaints about vehicles left on the street has decreased from 206 during a residential plow in January 2022 down to 30 in January 2024 and just 6 during last December's residential snow clearing operation. The chair of the Public Works Committee, Councillor Janice Lukes, isn't sure what more the city can do.
It is unfortunate because it's not fair to the people that do move their vehicles and want a clean street. And, we can, I guess, spend all the money in the world on advertising. And I think we should just focus on maybe raising the price of the tickets.
The fine is currently $200. You'll get a ticket in the mail, not on your windshield.
Somehow the drivers have to be informed. I think the best thing is signs.
Luke says signage is costly and takes a lot of time to put up and take down. The number of tickets for this snowfall will be released following the completion of the plow, which ends Tuesday night at 7. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, a Winnipeg towing company says the first big storm of the season last week led to some of its highest calls for service numbers ever. Bison Towing Director Zachariah Shoeb says the company saw about 30 to 40% more calls than last year. He says the company received 375 calls for service this past Thursday alone, the most they've seen in a single day over the last 3 years.
We did approximately, I would say, close to 300 calls a day within the last week, especially after the blizzard. Most of them were, the wrench outs, people getting stuck in snow.
Manitobans also seemingly made good use of their CAA memberships over the last few days. It has responded to more than 2,000 calls for service since Thursday. Residents of 2 Winnipeg apartment complexes run by different companies are fed up with their out-of-order elevators. It is causing people at both buildings physical pain and stress. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Robin Morissette lives on the 6th floor, which is also the top floor of the Stradbrook Avenue apartment building. The building's only elevator has been out of service since October. He's been avoiding the stairs at all costs.
I was run over by a car 6 years ago, so standing hurts, sitting hurts, moving hurts. I no longer have a tailbone, so every time I have to climb up 6 stories of stairs, it hurts. I'm actually in pain. And I've actually had to have friends help me carry stuff up.
His neighbor Aster Jacob is in a similar situation. She uses a cane and a walker and is recovering from leg surgeries. She didn't want to go on camera, but talked to us about her experience.
I can't do whatever I'm planning to because the going up and down the stairs is killing me.
Globe Property Management's chief operating officer says the elevator was supposed to be fixed December 1st. The decades-old elevator needed to be modernized, and less invasive work began in 2022. Ron Penner says the company doing the work faced delays, including getting approval for fire safety equipment upgrades.
We have been communicating with them about the delays. I know that doesn't, that doesn't make it better for folks who are walking those stairs, but it is really 100% out of our control.
Residents at this 55-plus building, run by a different property management company, have also been without a working elevator since December 12th. Gordon Arseny has lived here for almost 2 decades. He worries taking the stairs isn't good for his heart condition.
We've got to walk up the stairs, and especially when we're parking down below, that's an extra 20 stairs to go up. And it's tiring. I mean, we're seniors.
WRE Development says it's working to have the elevator fixed as soon as possible. They say it's taken longer than expected because they need specialized parts. Back on Stradbrook Avenue, Penner said the elevator was expected to be up and running Monday. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba is planning a public inquiry into whether the former PC government improperly tried to push through a mining deal after losing the last election. Premier Wab Kinew says he has unanswered questions around Tory efforts to approve the CO Silica mine, but a critic is questioning the Premier's motivations and demanding an inquiry. The CBC's Ian Fraze has the story.
The Tories tried to push through a sand mining project, and now the NDP government wants another, broader investigation into how it happened and why.
We're going to have a public inquiry into the CO Silica affair.
The PCs lost the 2023 election. Despite that, they still tried to approve CO Silica's proposal to drill for sand in southeastern Manitoba before the new NDP government was sworn in. Outgoing governments are expected to avoid major decisions before the new government takes over. Earlier this year, Manitoba's Ethics Commissioner ruled the PCs violated that convention. While the mine was never approved, former Premier Heather Stephenson and 2 cabinet ministers were fined for trying.
Very thorough report, but there are still unanswered questions. Mainly motive, like why did they do this?
Wab Kinew's government rejected the mine last year over concerns it could harm the water supply. He questions if the Tories' interest in CO Silica was tied to money, something the Ethics Commissioner, whose authority was limited, couldn't prove. But a political expert argues the Premier has different motivations for wanting this inquiry.
I guess from a political standpoint, they would dredge up more ammunition to support the Premier's frequent charge and question period that he's staring across the room at a corrupt Progressive Conservative Party.
Kinew says an inquiry as soon as 2026 should also examine the role of business people who lobbied on CO Silica's behalf, which the ethics probe did not do. But Thomas questions how much new information an inquiry would uncover.
Will lead to complaints that this is double jeopardy. We went through this already.
All of this comes as CO Silica tries to get its environmental license approved. The company plans to drill fewer wells and extract less sand than its first proposal, but Thomas believes this inquiry might give the NDP the cover to reject this project again. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, in response to the Premier's comments, current PC leader Abi Khan said in a statement that the Premier is, quote, playing political games on a matter that has already been investigated and concluded, while CO Silica says the company will cooperate with the inquiry. Winnipeg police are investigating a homicide in the city's Weston neighborhood. Police were called to reports of a stabbing at an apartment complex in the 300 block of Blake Street on Saturday. They say 56-year-old Christopher Sean Brown died from his injuries. The homicide unit is investigating. Canada Post has reached a tentative deal with its union with a ratification vote set for early next year. The agreements cover urban and rural delivery and include higher wages, enhanced benefits, and a weekend parcel delivery model. If passed, the deal would last into 2029. All right, well, certainly a lot of snow out there after those couple rounds of snow that we saw through the later part of last week. Let's get a first check on our forecast now with weather specialist Mickey Wolf.
Thanks, Riley. Well, we've certainly seen quite the cold snap across Manitoba. We might be getting a little bit of relief in the coming days, but first, let's take a look at some of the snow that's happening, especially in southern Manitoba right now. Definitely seeing some snow making its way across the province, and hopefully that should be making its way out of Manitoba by the end of the evening. But we do have some cold to contend with tonight, especially in the north. We're seeing a cold warning right now. It's a yellow level warning, so it's the most moderate of our warnings from Environment and Climate Change Canada, but we're seeing extreme cold in the north. Those temperatures with wind chill are feeling like minus 45 to minus 50, so quite cold for folks in the north. But tomorrow is not looking as chilly for Winnipeg. We're seeing a bit of a warm up in the morning hours, and then things are going to start to get a little colder as we hit the afternoon. And Riley, I'll be back with the full forecast coming up with a little bit more on those colder temperatures and snow.
Thanks, Mickey. Well, still ahead tonight, it was a building notorious for drug use, violence, and gang activity. But has anything changed at 444 Kennedy Street? Our I-Team brings us an update next. It is a building once known for drug trafficking and violence. Residents in a Manitoba housing complex on Kennedy Street told CBC News in 2023 that crime in the building had gotten so bad they feared for their lives. But after nearly $500,000 in repairs and safety upgrades, they say life there is starting to improve. The I-Team's Michelle Allen has this update.
Tenants told us they used to be too afraid to come up these stairs because people used to come here to sell drugs, sleep, and use it as a toilet. But after a fresh coat of paint and some security upgrades, tenants say things at this Manitoba housing building are getting much better.
This is broken into almost every day.
When we first spoke to Ted Chartrand in 2023, he said 444 Kennedy should be shut down. They couldn't even receive mail because of rampant theft. But now they've got 24-hour security and new mailboxes. Chartrand says there are still problems with meth use and the fire alarms going off, but it's improving.
It's gotten better with respect to hard drills happening, people arguing always, yelling and stuff like that, smoking all over the place, you know.
The provincial government says it's been investing in fixing up public housing. It says over 2,000 units have been repaired and put back into use. Manitoba Housing stopped placing people at 444 Kennedy in 2023 because of the safety issues. It reopened to new tenants again in August 2024. The province says, on average, Winnipeg police were called to the building at least once or twice a day in 2023. Since the security upgrades, that's reduced. Police are now called, on average, every other day.
We have security that is working with community again on, changing behavior and keeping people tenanted versus, are you, ready to live in our housing, and are you ready to change behavior versus we're evicting you right away.
Some say recent improvements won't make up for years of underinvestment.
It's still far below what is needed. We've determined probably less than half of what is needed, but definitely we have seen an improvement in the budget for maintenance repair.
Chartrand says he's still hoping to eventually move out, but for now, 444 Kennedy is home. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, to Steinbach now, where one man is helping stock the shelves at the city's food bank. He's doing it by stitching together shopping bags. Peter Dick has created thousands of bags out of material that would have otherwise been tossed. The CBC's Christopher Garreau now on how the retired gym teacher turned a new hobby into help for thousands.
It's a meticulous job, sewing together one piece of cloth at a time. That's how retired Steinbach gym teacher Peter Dick has put together 850 shopping bags. He's using furniture swatches that would have otherwise been tossed in the landfill. At $5 a piece, he's already raised thousands for Southeast Helping Hands Food Bank in Steinbach.
All of the stuff that I use is thrown away stuff, and I give it new life. And I get a kick out of that.
Food Bank Director Ken Dick is a former student of Peter's. He says every 2 weeks they feed about 1,700 people. The bags Peter creates helps the food bank keep the lights on.
Our community is fantastic. People like this is what keeps us going here.
Peter's wife Thelma is the artist behind the patterns. Those patterns come from boxes, each containing 700 swatches, delivered courtesy of furniture sales rep Craig Skeen.
He likes to take the trash and turn it into food, right? So those kind of things. And that's what drives him. He loves it.
Skeen was impressed it can fit 4 4-liter jugs of milk.
So impressed, he's now shipping hundreds of bags to a furniture store in Thunder Bay, owned by Scott Reed.
My instruction to Craig is every time you're talking to Peter, bring me another box of 100 because I can't keep them in stock, right? So
it was Thelma's bag of quilting patches Peter found in a closet one day that gave him the epiphany to start sewing. At almost 90 years old, Peter has also created over 3,000 bags for health and school kits and helps a church group make quilts to donate globally through the Grace Mennonite Church and Mennonite Central Committee. So Peter's sewing went from hobby to something now keeping people fed, read, and warm in Manitoba and all over the world. Christopher Garreau, CBC News, Steinbach.
Winnipeg Animal Services is getting its residents into the holiday spirit with the hope of finding forever homes in time for Christmas. It held its holiday open house on Sunday. Inside, 20 kennels of adoptable pups were open to the public. The event was also a chance for people to give some much-needed donations like collars, leashes, food, and toys. Animal Services says they have a lot of animals that need homes.
What we're seeing right now is higher numbers of dogs than we've ever seen before. Typically, as we enter the winter season, our numbers go down, things get slower, but we've been steadily over capacity for months and months now. So the amount of work and the amount of resources that goes into that, it's significant.
The agency has 33 dogs in its care, but only 20 were viewable during the open house. 15 birds are also in the care of Animal Services. Certainly a good weekend to stay inside and play with the pups. Back to a very seasonal day today, but weather specialist Mickey Wolf is back. And Mickey, that was not the case everywhere.
Well, we've certainly seen a slight warm up today in Manitoba, but overall we've had a chillier December. Let's take a look at some of those daytime highs we saw across the province today. Definitely a little bit warmer in the southeast in Steinbeck and Winnipeg. We're seeing kind of around -11, -10, and then up in the north, again, that's where that cold warning is active in the very far north part of the province. So definitely a chillier day for folks in northern Manitoba, and also a bit of a snowier day in the south. We're seeing a low pressure system making its way out of the province, and by the early hours tomorrow morning that will largely have moved its way into Ontario, and then we're seeing a high pressure system sweeping across Winnipeg and the rest of Manitoba over the next day or so. We're going to get a little bit of snow Wednesday and then another high pressure system again Thursday, but just on the tail of it we've got some snow coming back, and hopefully a little bit more moderate amounts than we've seen thus far. So by tonight at midnight, we're going to have up to 10 centimeters in Gimli. Winnipeg should see up to 4. And then overnight Wednesday, we will have a little bit more snow. But then Thursday, that's when we're going to see those numbers pick up again. But hopefully it won't be too much of a deterrent for some dog walking tonight. We've got Chelsea here, courtesy of Margie, all dressed up for Christmas in Santa's sleigh, ready to go. And we're seeing a little bit of a back and forth with those temperatures tomorrow. We've got -18 and then warming up a little bit to -17 before it dips back down for our afternoon. But luckily some sunny skies there. So if you'd like to see your pet on our forecast, send us an email at talkback@cbc.ca. And now our 3-day forecast coming up. We've got, again, a little bit of a warm up by the 25th. So we're looking at -17 for tomorrow, and then gradually we're starting to see things warm up before Thursday. We're going to have quite a bit of a balmier day compared to what we've seen over the past little while for Manitoba. We're looking at just chances of flurries Tuesday and Thursday, sort of bookending the 24th, but things are looking quite a bit warmer. And Riley, I will be back with our 7-day forecast to give you a better picture of what this tail end of December is going to look like across Manitoba.
All right, thank you so much. So if you bundle up the kids, not bad weather, especially with the sun, to get outside and enjoy the winter break. We are taking another quick break. Here's some shots of a home in Norwood ready for the holidays. We are back right after this. Well, grocery prices have been top of mind for many Manitobans this past year. Manitoba's premier says he's thinking a lot about grocery prices too. In a year-end interview with CBC News, Wab Canoe says he has an idea of how the government can help trim that total at the checkout, while also vowing to make a noticeable difference in healthcare wait times and cleaning up more homeless encampments. In his sit-down, the CBC's Ian Fraze also asked the premier if Manitobans could be heading to the polls for an early election. Here is some of their conversation.
In the past, you've cut the gas tax, you froze hydro rates. Are you planning something similar?
Well, I'm thinking a lot about the cost of groceries and the cost of living, putting food on the table, literally. You've heard us talk about things like the property controls, and we're going to keep pushing that forward. Hopefully we can remove all of the property controls and have true competition in the grocery sector. We're doing some studies right now, both in terms of competition and who's active in the market. So maybe we could get more chains setting up in the province in the future. Looking at the price of milk, which is, legislated, so we'll see whether anything's possible there, while also making sure that the producers can make a good living themselves. It's a balancing act, of course. And then I think going forward to the budget, we'll crystallize all this stuff that we're thinking about and hopefully be able to bring some tangible help for people on the cost of living, because I know everyone's thinking about it.
What about cutting checks directly to Manitobans? Is that an idea?
Well, I saw it in your great reporting, actually, that was one of the suggestions that people had. So it's something that is on the table. But I would really love to find a way to reduce costs, because that will help inflation. If we send money out the door, it might actually increase inflation. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know that it's the first thing on our agenda.
So first would be to find ways to cut costs.
If we can, right? And it's tough because a provincial government can't do everything, especially when we're talking about fruit that's coming from other countries, or we're talking about food products that are being imported from other provinces. It's a big supply chain. But it seems to me, if we do a little bit more on competition, maybe a little bit more in terms of the direct costs that people are facing, like cutting the gas tax, we just add a bunch of these different actions together, hopefully we can move the needle for the average person out there.
This time last year, you told me 2025 would be the year that Manitobans see a difference in the homelessness problem, getting people out of encampments into homes. But the signs of homelessness remain very visible, especially in Winnipeg. Why is ending homelessness so hard?
Well, it's a multi-generational problem that we're trying to solve here. The progress that we have made are the 130 people that we've moved out of tents and into housing. And a related number is at zero. Zero of those people have ended up back on the street. So putting the supports around people once we move them into housing is working. The challenge that we have is there's about 700 people that we're trying to reach out there in tents. And so we need to be able to get more housing, get more supports, and get more outreach done to move people along that. In the election, we said, it's going to take 8 years for us to accomplish this. Of course, I want people to be able to feel the impact and perceive that we are making progress here. So this coming year, we've got to more than double what we've done so far.
You haven't ruled out an early election. Will Manitobans go to the polls next year?
No.
They will not?
No.
So are you then planning to, would October 2027 be the timeline?
I'm not thinking about an early election is what I can tell you. And I can almost certainly say we're not going to the polls in 2026, right? So I'm focused on healthcare, I'm focused on the cost of living, the grocery prices we just talked about. I'm focused on Churchill. I'm not thinking about an early election.
You say almost certainly, though, and you mentioned about a month ago.
Well, there's always, like who would think that Trump is going to wake up and tweet about whatever he tweets about on a given day? But yeah, no election in 2026.
There are still long waits in ERs, long waits for surgeries and diagnostics. When does that get fixed?
This year.
How so?
Well, people have been saying we need more staff. We've added more staff, and we'll continue to add more. People are saying that we need to guarantee the patient experience, the safety for the patient. So we're bringing in a patient safety charter. People have said we need to end mandating for nurses. We're going to start doing that. People have said we need to have staff-to-patient ratios. We're going to start doing that. We've also done a whole lot of other things in terms of making the hospitals run more efficiently. Great initiative at the Grace, being led by Dr. Dan Roberts. And just by formalizing the way people do rounds there, they've done the equivalent of us adding 17 beds to that hospital. So again, there's a whole mix of priorities of things that we got to do. But when it comes to the resources and sort of the more macro level decisions that government makes, we're taking those steps.
Do you think Manitobans will, a year from now, say that progress has been made? Because
Yeah.
you said it's going to be fixed this year. I mean, what measures are you looking at? What metrics are you envisioning?
All the ones that I'm sure you'll ask me about in next year's year-end interview. But on a more serious level, the primary care piece is very, very important, because let's remember, a lot of folks don't ever go to the hospital, right? For a lot of folks, their experience with healthcare is, my kid is sick and I need to make sure that it's not something super serious and, you know, get a good care plan for them while they're out of school. Maybe it's getting the sick note from the doctor. Well, we're taking action on that too. So we're doing the primary care piece, we're doing some of the community pieces. When we're looking at the hospital and the healthcare system, the long-term care system as well, we're taking action in a lot of those really important areas. And so we'll continue to have that comprehensive approach in healthcare to make things better.
Anything else you'd like to add or announce, Mr. Premier?
We will likely, I don't know why I'm qualifying this, we're going to have a public inquiry into the Sciosilica affair. There are some unanswered questions. It was a really big deal for us when the Ethics Commissioner fined Heather Stephenson, Cliff Cullen, and Jeff Wharton. That was the first time we've ever seen something like that in the province. Very thorough report, but there are still unanswered questions. Mainly motive, like why did they do this? The Ethics Commissioner, the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, was not able to answer that, partially because he's not able to look into financial holdings and stuff like that. These people made representations, but the Commissioner also found that pretty much all of them lied in their hearings. So that's something that needs to get addressed. And I think most importantly for Manitobans out there, I think you've also seen that the lobbying framework is pretty weak in our province relative to other provinces. So how do we maybe get answers on what happened in the Sciosilica affair, but also how do we look ahead to the future and just have a stronger framework? We are going to probably bring in new lobbying rules. We are going to bring in rules around people participating in inquiries from other provinces and things like that. But I'm sure that there's more that needs to be done. Like, you read that report, it's not just GR people who are reaching out to the government. There's, board members and, other folks that are having conversations. Is our lobbying framework strong enough in Manitoba to make sure that you, the average person, know what's going on with your government officials, the people that you affect in our democracy? I think we can do better. And so I think an inquiry that's looking to the future and starting to answer some of those questions about how do we tighten up the regulatory legislative framework around this, I think that'll be a benefit for all of us.
And would this have Heather Stephenson, Cliff Cullen, and Jeff Wharton, would they be required to testify in this framework?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. So we're working on the terms of reference. We're working on who a commissioner could be. It'll probably have to be somebody different than was involved in this report, just so that they're coming at it with an open mind and a fresh perspective. And then, of course, we want to think about those questions that we want this inquiry to answer. Of course, motive and why did they actually violate the Caretaker Convention and the Constitution? Like, what was so important about this thing that, they would risk it all for that? But importantly too, like, what transparency do you need into the dealings of lobbying to government so that you know that your democracy is strong, your democracy is respected?
In terms of reference being drafted, what's the timeline?
I think you'll see us launch it in 2026, which means, inquiries typically can take a year or more, so you can work outward from that date. So we are probably looking at a 2 or 3 year process from here.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks for this.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
It's our provincial affairs reporter Ian Fraze in a year-end interview with Premier Wab Kinew. If you missed any of that or want to watch it again, you can find it at cbc.ca/Manitoba or on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. While turning back to our healthcare system, public health experts across the country are keeping a close eye on a jump in the number of flu cases this holiday season. This year's available vaccine isn't a good match for H3N2, which is the current predominant influenza strain, and health officials are expecting a surge in flu-related hospitalizations in the coming weeks, but doctors are still urging people to get their shots.
The flu vaccine is actually a vaccine against 3 different strains of the flu, because the flu is not one thing. There's actually multiple strains circulating, and when the flu vaccine is developed, because it has to be made several months in advance of the flu season, you have to make some sort of prediction about what the most likely circulating strains are going to be. And so based on what's happening in the southern hemisphere during their winter, our summer, we sort of predict what's going to happen during our winter, our flu season.
There's particular concern over the low vaccination uptake this winter, with many provinces reporting that only around 20% of eligible residents have received the flu vaccine. Well, for the first time in 8 months, the number of trips by Americans to Canada has risen compared with the same time last year. Statistics Canada says U.S. residents made over 1.8 million trips by vehicle or plane across the northern border this past October. That is up 3% from 12 months earlier. Meanwhile, more and more Canadians are shunning travel to the United States. Canadian residents made 2.3 million return trips there in October. That's down 26% from the same month last year. Coming up, a history-making weekend in Portage-La Prairie. We'll take you to what's believed to be the first pow-wow ever held on City of Portage property. Stay with us. History was made in Portage La Prairie over the weekend. The city joined Long Plain First Nation and Dakota Plains First Nation to host the Prairie Unity Competition Powwow at Stride Place. And as Gavin Axelrod shows us, it's believed the three-day event was the first powwow ever held on City of Portage property.
More than 100 dancers in their best regalia. And the thunderous voices of singers and echoes of beating drums. All part of the grand entry of the first ever Unity Powwow in Portage La Prairie.
It's very important. There's a very rich history when it comes to the First Nations people in and around Portage La Prairie.
Just last year, the city issued an apology to Chief Smokes Nation for a 1911 decision that led to the removal of the Dakota people, whose traditional territory extends into parts of northern United States. The Unity Powwow was jointly organized by the city of Portage La Prairie, Dakota Plains First Nation, and Long Plain First Nation, through an enterprise helping First Nations and nearby municipalities create shared economic success.
It's a celebration of life. It has to do with us, regaining our culture and being able to practice our culture, our traditions, and our language.
Together, the three communities also made history.
This is the first one that we know of that's been held on city property and at Stride Place.
People came to the powwow from across Canada. Grass dancer Sheldon Kakakisik drove in from Fort Francis, Ontario.
We call this Anishinaabe Bematzewa, and it's a Anishinaabe, our way of life. And we follow it. We travel all over Manitoba, all over Canada, U.S. Doing this.
Many came from the U.S., like Brendan Potak, who is a member of the Ho-Chunk Station drumming group based out of Wisconsin.
There's a lot of people thinking that we live in teepees, that we have buffalo robes on. There's a lot of things like that, but we're still here, and we have a voice, and we matter.
The representation is important to committee chairs Joan Smoke and Ralph Francis.
It's a time of new beginnings, it's a time of rejuvenation, and for the city of Portage and us, it's a time of reconciliation too.
I hope people will have a better understanding of what powwows are, how they bring people together, and how we can all gather and work together in unity to make a common goal happen.
The Unity Powwow wrapped up on Sunday, but the communities want to keep displaying culture here for years to come. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Portage La Prairie.
Holiday gatherings typically mean an abundance of festive treats around the home, but some of those foods and decorations could be dangerous for pets. Dr. Jonas Watson from the Grant Park Animal Hospital has some tips now on what to watch out for.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonas Watson, and here's what you can do to protect your animal from eating inappropriate things during the holiday season. A box of chocolates. Dark chocolates, the baking chocolates, those are the ones that have high levels of caffeine and theobromine in them, which can cause excitability and hyperactivity, increased heart rate, tremors, seizures, stomach upset, that sort of thing in dogs. That animal should probably see a veterinarian to induce vomiting and perhaps decontaminate them depending on how much they've consumed. They may have to go on supportive treatments like IV fluids and perhaps gastroprotectants. Ribbon and tinsel. They'll enjoy these things, chew on them, swallow them, and then these long string or ribbon type foreign bodies will get stuck in the gastrointestinal tract. Sometimes they'll anchor in one spot and anchor in another, and then you've got these intestines that sort of slide over these very hard, plasticky, non-destructible kind of items in their stomach, and that can lacerate the intestines, cause very serious problems. We may have to take x-rays to see just how problematic that ribbon and tinsel is. Some of these animals need emergency surgery. Turkey or ham. Raw meats can pose risks in terms of infectious diseases like salmonella, and the consumption of carcasses like turkeys and chickens can lead to bad gastrointestinal problems, including bones getting stuck inside the gastrointestinal tract. Holiday plants like mistletoe and poinsettias. Cats and dogs chewing on the leaves of certain holiday plants can lead to oral irritation and stomach upset that may require a visit to the vet. Some people put additives into the water of Christmas tree stands that can be toxic or problematic for animals, so do be aware, and that everybody needs to be kept sort of safe and attended to during this busy time of year.
Some good tips there and a good reminder to keep an eye on our four-legged friends as we head into the holiday season here. Well, certainly felt more like the holiday season if you're outside this weekend and did enjoy the sunshine through the day yesterday, though. Let's bring Mickey back now. And Mickey, it was a bit of a chilly start, but certainly not as cold here in southern Manitoba as parts of the north are.
Well, if you're in southern Manitoba tonight, it's not quite as cold temperature-wise as the folks in the north are having to contend with. Let's take a look at the next 24 hours we've got ahead of us in Manitoba. In the south, we're looking at chillier temperatures tonight, especially in the southwest. Things are looking quite cold in Roblin and Swan River. We've got those temperatures down to -27. And then as we move to the southeast, things are a good 10 degrees warmer, especially Steinbeck and Sprague. We're looking at -19, -18. So compared to what we've been seeing with wind chill, this is quite a bit warmer. Again, we're still seeing that snow making its way through the province overnight tonight, so we should have clearer skies by the time we hit those early morning hours. And then again in the north, now these are our base temperatures, but then with wind chill, that's really what's pushing this cold warning for folks way up in the far north of Manitoba. As we get into the daytime hours tomorrow, we will have a little bit of cloud cover in the morning before we move to a bit of a warm up in the day. We're definitely going to see some sun with that high pressure system coming in, and then by the afternoon we might start to see a little bit of cloud and possibly a little bit of snow coming into the north. And then for the south tomorrow, again, we've got those temperatures just slowly creeping up throughout the day. We're definitely going to get some sunshine for you folks in the south tomorrow over that noon hour, just cut by a little bit of clouds before clouds move in again from the west into the afternoon. And our temperatures are trending a little bit warmer as we head towards the end of the week. Again, we're seeing really chilly in the north, but things are a bit warmer in the south. By the time we get to Thursday, we are going to see things a little bit closer to that sort of -10, -15 range. And as for wind, things, you know, with the exception of Churchill, those gusting winds up to 60 kilometers an hour, we are going to see things start to calm down largely across Saskatchewan as we get into Wednesday. For our snow depth right now, folks, we're seeing quite a bit of snow in that Churchill region. And then the pause, you know, we've got the moderate 15 to 30 centimeters. So we're looking quite snowy across Manitoba right now, and we'll expect a little bit more snow. But Riley, things are looking like they might just clear up quite a bit across Manitoba in time for the 25th.
All right, thanks, Mickey. Well, a busy restaurant usually means noise, confusion, and pressure. But inside a pizzeria near Milan, calm and predictability are part of the recipe. Every table, every sound, every movement is designed for people on the autism spectrum. The reason is that they are the people running things. Megan Williams reports.
The doors open, the crowds arrive, and pizzas slide through the oven. No shouting, no clanging plates, just a quiet, confident bustle. Here at the first pizzeria in Europe to employ only those on the autism spectrum. Founder Nico Acampora says his world fell apart when his son Leo was diagnosed with autism. Then, in the middle of one night, an idea struck him. I sat up and said, Stefania, we need to open a restaurant run by people with autism. She said, Nico, you can't even boil an egg. Go back to sleep. 4 years later, Nico runs 2 restaurants that employ more than 40 on the spectrum, with reservations booked weeks in advance.
Everything about the design of Pizza Out is to avoid stimulus overload for the people who work here. So, sound absorption in the acoustics, a ventilation system that removes smells, and just a couple of basic colors on the walls.
With floor tiles and space at the table ends to help staff spatially orient. In the kitchen, pizzas move automatically so they don't burn, and cooks can always see each other.
So this one is called Differently, Diversamente, and this one is called Napoli Out, like Napoli Autism. Qual è la tua preferita?
La mia preferita fra queste due è la Diversamente.
That's his favorite.
A few years ago, Lorenzo was miserable in an institution where he would self-harm with forks. Here, he says, he's found purpose and friendship. Recommending antipasti and his favorite Tuscan red. The pizzeria has sparked national awareness of the struggles of those with autism, led to them getting more jobs, and even sparked calls in Canada's Parliament for support for similar ventures. It's also turned Nico Acampora into something of a celebrity. He says his greatest hope is that one day so many restaurants hire people on the spectrum that Pizza Out won't be needed anymore. In the meantime, he's opening a third Pizza Out in Rome. Megan Williams, CBC News, Monza, Italy.
Well, from pizza to the power of pierogies, still ahead, how one Saskatchewan town comes together, one doughy delight at a time. It's making me hungry. We'll bring you that story in our Daily Lift after the break.
We are looking at a little bit of a warm-up. Some might say it's a holiday miracle, potentially. Let's take a look at our 7-day forecast for Winnipeg. So we're seeing things holding steady for Tuesday and Wednesday around that -17, -16 range. And then as we get into Thursday and Friday, we do have a bit of a warm-up here, folks. A little bit of flurries Thursday, potentially, before we have that nice warm-up Friday. Cloudy skies, but warmer temperatures. And then Saturday, we're looking at a chance of light snow. Temperatures will drop down again to that -15, -18 range as we hit the weekend. But again, Riley, things are looking warmer for the holiday season. Certainly not freezing cold for us as we get into the weekend.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Mickey. Well, anybody from rural Manitoba knows that volunteers are the backbone of small communities. Well, in the town of Ituna, Saskatchewan, those volunteers have made some 70,000 pierogies so far this year alone. Janine Whitfield has our daily lift.
Even the cameraman are here today. No.
Tuesday mornings are pierogi day in Ituna. That's when these volunteers get to work cooking up a storm, making pierogies as a fundraiser for the churches in town. It's a tradition people here have taken part in for the last 20 to 30 years.
You need money to keep the churches going, right? Because the people aren't coming to church like they used to. So we needed something to supplement the income, and pierogies, well, they started here and they kept on, just mushroomed.
Over the past couple decades, the community figures they've made around 1 million pierogies, maybe even more.
Put it in, you fold it over, make sure it meets, and then you just pinch it until you get the hole filled here, and then you start from the other side.
And they've gotten closer to each other while doing it.
Oh, we have a lady here that's over 90, and she's here pinching today. And she loves it. She comes for coffee, and she has lunch, and it's a day out for them.
These volunteers will keep their churches going strong with long-lasting friendships made over pierogies.
It's just the camaraderie, the friendship, the visiting, socializing. It's good. It's really good. And everybody enjoys them. I haven't met a person yet that doesn't like pierogies.
For now, there'll be more good times in Ituna, thanks to the power of pierogies. Janine Whitfield, CBC News, Ituna.
There's a lot of pierogies, and it's making me hungry. I love pierogies, but I have not found one as good as my grandma's were. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow.